Greetings, royal queens and kings. This is your host, Queen Tulsa, and welcome back to the Queen Tulsa Show. This is a call-in show. Diddy case, hundreds of hours of date, night, and freak off videos surfaces. Okay. In this compelling video, we delve into the harrowing story of Jane, who found herself ensnared in a web of manipulation and control orchestrated by Combs. Slavik reveals how Combs exploited Jane's most private moments, threatening to expose intimate videos as a means of coercion. This chilling account highlights the psychological tactics employed by abusers, including the concept of love bombing, which psychologist Dawn Hughes explained as a strategy to gain the victim's trust and loyalty. Join us as we unpack the dynamics of their relationship, illustrating how Jane was forced into a corner, unable to refuse Combs' demands without facing dire consequences. This video serves as a crucial reminder of the complexities surrounding abusive relationships and the importance of recognizing the signs of manipulation. And listen here, we got some resources in the description as well. Um, yes, so make sure you utilize each and every resource that we do have in the description. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and bring so Megan Kuniv, actually she covered the YSL. Didn't she cover the YSL? I believe she covered the YSL trial. And this is where we are getting our information from. So I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat if you guys want to go over and check her out and her commentary or her views and opinions on this case. All right, so let's get into it. Diddy trial. Jury has hundreds of hours of date night or freak off videos and evidence. Deliberations will begin Monday in Manhattan after 6 weeks of testimony and 2 days of closing arguments. And this was produced by Megan Kuniv. So these are just like photos. Happy 45th birthday, Puff Daddy. Oh, okay. When deliberations began Monday in New York City, jurors in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking racketeering conspiracy trial will have watched at least 30 minutes. Okay. And actually, let me put up a banner. I think I should put up an overlay as I do this. Let's see. Okay, who this is? All right, yeah, I'll put this one up. So I'm gonna put an overlay up, and I'm gonna read this just so we don't get any copyright. All right, so here we go. It says, when deliberations began Monday in New York City, jurors in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy trial would have watched at least 30 minutes of video showing the parties with prostitutes that prosecutors say were brutal-esque crimes at the center of the rapper's decades-long criminal enterprise. His attorneys played more than half the footage. Combs' defense embraced the video during the 7-week trial as a way to bluster the argument that the women Combs is accused of trafficking by fraud, force, or coercion were in reality willing participants in what lawyer Mark Agnifilio described on Friday as essentially, "I submit to you, a date night." What I'm asking you to do is feel free to watch the videos. Videos are important evidence. They're sensitive, but they're important, Agnifilio told the jury in his 4-hour closing argument. Agnifilio said jurors almost have to take on the role of like a doctor or just say, I'm going to divorce myself from the fact that I was never meant to see these. The hotel rooms are beautiful. The music is nice. I think there's Bryson Tiller and Usher, and the music is beautiful. It's a nice mood, Agnifilio said. When you watch these videos for the first time, you have no idea, you're in a federal courthouse in a racketeering sex trafficking trial. Only Combs, the attorneys, and U.S. District Judge Aaron Samarinarian and his staff know what exactly jurors saw on the videos after the judge made the rare decision to seal them from public view at federal prosecutors' request. Submarinarian, a 2023 Joe Biden appointee, did not close the courtroom when they were played in trial. Instead, jurors wore headphones while viewing the videos on the small monitors at their seats, and the judge ordered the television in the gallery and courtroom shut off. Jurors saw 6 images from the videos during Cassie Ventura's testimony and 15 during the testimony of a woman who was in a relationship with Combs until his arrest in September of 2024 and testified under the um, pseudonym Jane. They first saw portions of the videos showing Ventura on June 17th during testimony from Delisa Penland, a special agent with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. They saw more during cross-examination, then saw videos of Jane on June 20th and June 24th during testimony from Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent Joseph Cericilio. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily A. Johnson played about 2 minutes and 5 seconds from videos involving Ventura during Penland's direct exam. Then Combs' lawyer, Tenny Garagos, played at least another 10 minutes in cross-examination, including from 2 videos prosecutors entered as evidence but didn't play. With Cercilio, Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey played 11 segments totaling at least 12 minutes. The length of 2 segments isn't documented because Comey didn't state the timestamps on the record as she did with the others. She only said to play the entire segment or stated the beginning mark and said to play until the end. Garagos played more footage on Cross, but not from the videos Comey showed. Instead, she played 2 videos in their entirety that had been entered into evidence by prosecutors but not played in direct exam. And she played 5 segments totaling about 5 minutes and 13 seconds of another video prosecutors entered as evidence but didn't play. She also showed text messages from before and after the encounters in which Jane and Combs discussed their plans and how much fun they had together. Some of the clips the defense played were from last July after Combs assaulted Jane on June 18, 2024, and what prosecutors argue a clear example of him forcing her into sex trafficking. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavik acknowledged this in her closing argument when she says she expects the defense will argue that those videos show that Jane was into it. But what those videos really show you is that she was super, super high, just like she told you. She was different in those videos than the videos that you've seen, and that's because she was high on a different drug during those videos. Slavik said, referencing Jane's testimony about Combs giving her a new sort of DRUG, liquid Molly, she called it, which is pure MDMA or ecstasy. Slavik said the video shows some of the most private, intimate, embarrassing moments of Jane's life, and Combs used them as leverage by threatening to expose her and send the sex tapes to her child's father. Slavik also used the phrase love bombing to describe Combs showering Jane with affection in what psychologist Dawn Hughes said abusers use as a ploy to win their victims' loyalty. All of these factors in combination show the defendant's course of conduct that's meant to control, manipulate, and coerce Jane into engaging in a commercial sex acts, Slavik said. These factors lurking in the background of their relationship meant that Jane couldn't say no to hotel nights without risking the rent payments, without risking violent outbursts, without risking the release of her sex tapes. What do y'all think about this so far? Make sure y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe. Tell somebody that we're live. Yes, yes, yes. Slavik said Jane is not an adult woman making a free choice, as the defense has suggested. It's a woman who's told the defendant that she doesn't want to do hotel nights, but has relented to avoid any number of bad things happening to her, Slavik said. Slavik said the videos of Ventura show her performing just like Jane. Don't be fooled into thinking that it's anything more than that, a performance. If you look closely, you'll see that everything Cassie told you about freak offs is true. They're orchestrated, they're directed. The defendant is moving the camera around himself, at times focused on the escort and not on Cassie at all. Very similar to the Jane videos. It's clear that this was his fantasy, not Cassie's, she said. Slavik told jurors to make no mistake. This is not an attempt to criminalize dysfunctional relationships or unconventional sexual preferences. It's about how the defendant's conduct broke federal law, she said. These charges are not about adults freely engaging in a sexual preference of their choice. It's not about free choices at all. In his argument the next day, Agnifilio said if jurors take the part out that is inconsistent or not consistent with how, many people choose to be intimate, and what you really have left is kind of this beautiful evening. Forget the SCX part. I mean, they're hanging out, they're eating food. At one point, Cassie is eating watermelon. People are hanging out, having a nice time, listening to music, and that was escape as much as physical intimacy, Agnifilio said on Friday. Agnifilio called Combs and Ventura's relationship kind of a great modern love story. They didn't write love stories like this in the 1800s because they didn't have a lot of these problems, Agnifilio said. Agnifilio also told the jury the crime scene is your private sex life, and we're here because of money. He reminded them of Ventura's $30 million lawsuit settlement. Nobody calls the FBI. No one calls the Department of Homeland Security. Nobody calls anybody. They do call somebody, though. They call civil plaintiff lawyers. That's who they call, because this isn't about justice. This isn't about a crime. This is about money, Agnifilio said. RICO predicate acts include arson, kidnapping. Prosecutors cited the videos in a timeline exhibit that also cited flight records, text messages, and phones that show the filmed sexual encounters involve prostitutes who traveled across state lines to engage in commercial sex. Slavik said on Thursday that commercial sex through interstate commerce is illegal. Even if all the participants enthusiastically consented, which for the reasons that we've been talking about, we know that that's not the case. That crime is the basis for Combs to transportation to engage in prostitution charges, but the charges that carry more prison time are more complex. For the SCX trafficking charges involving Ventura and Jane, prosecutors allege Combs forced, defrauded, and or coerced them into sexual encounters, including by threatening to publicize videos of them and later in his relationship with Jane paying her $10,000 monthly rent in Los Angeles. Hi, Norris Tony. How you doing? Jane testified in trial that Combs continues to the rent as well as her lawyer's bills. For the racketeering conspiracy charges, prosecutors allege Combs conspired with one or more of his employees to further his criminal enterprise through kidnapping, arson, bribery, witness tampering, forced labor, sex trafficking, transportation for prostitution and distribution, and possession of drugs, including ketamine, cocaine, ecstasy, methamphetamine, GHB, oxycodone, and substance called 2C. That Slavik said is a combination of the drugs that I've already listed that's just dyed pink. The alleged victims of forced labor are Combs' former employees, Capricorn Clark, and a woman who testified under the pseudonym Mia, as well as Ventura and Jane for the SEX with prostitutes that Combs arranged. Mia also testified that Combs raped her in when she lived at his home in Los Angeles in 2009 and 2010, and Ventura testified he raped her in 2018. So, the verdict sheet reads, let's go ahead and let's get into it. Okay, let me go ahead and bring this on up. We're going to put this up on the main screen. Okay. Hey, Norris, Tony, good to see you, hon. Okay, so I'm going to read it off to you. So pretty much what it says is the United States District Court, Southern District Court, U.S. versus, Sean Combs. So the verdict sheet, please indicate each of your verdicts. Okay. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, so it says, okay, I got to wait until this thing come off. All right. Okay, it says, please indicate each of your verdicts with a check mark. Count one, racketeering conspiracy. One, how do you find the defendant, Sean Combs, with respect to count one? Guilty, not guilty. A, if you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved kidnapping, including attempted kidnapping, aiding and abetting kidnapping, or conspiracy to commit kidnapping in violation of California law. Proven, not proven. B, if you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involving kidnapping, including attempted kidnapping, aiding and abetting kidnapping, or conspiracy to commit kidnapping in violation of New York law. Proven, not proven. So the next one is H. If you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved transportation or purposes of prostitution in violation of federal law. Proven, not proven. If you found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved inducement to travel for purposes of prostitution in violation of federal law. Proven, not proven. J. If you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved distributing and possessing with intent to distribute controlled substances in violation of federal law. Proven, not proven. If you check proven for questions G, then please indicate below whether as part of the racketeering conspiracy that the defendant agreed to or did commit sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura between in or about 2009 and in or about 2018. And two, Whether as part of the racketeering conspiracy, the defendant agreed to or did commit sex trafficking of Jane between in or May 2021 and in or about 2024. Did count one involve sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura? Yes or no? Did count one involve sex trafficking of Jane? Yes or no? If you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved arson, attempted arson, including aiding and abetting arson, or conspiracy to commit arson in violation of California law. Proven, not proved, proven. If you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved bribery, including attempted bribery, aiding and abetting bribery, or conspiracy to commit bribery in violation of California law. If you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved tampering with a witness or victim in violation of federal law. Proven, not proven. If you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved forced labor in violation of federal law. Proven, not proven. If you have found the defendant guilty of count one, then please indicate whether the pattern of racketeering activity that the defendant agreed would be committed involved as trafficking in violation of federal law. Proven, not proven. Count two, as trafficking, Cassandra Ventura. How do you find the defendant Sean Combs with respect to count two? Guilty, not guilty. Count three, transportation with intent to commit prostitution related to Cassandra Ventura. How do you find the defendant Sean Combs with respect to count three? Guilty, not guilty. Count four, as trafficking Jane. How do you find the defendant Sean Combs with respect to count four? Guilty, not guilty. Count five, transportation with intent to commit prostitution related to Jane. How do you find the defendant Sean Combs with respect to count five? Guilty, not guilty. Final instruction. Once you have considered all of the questions, please have the foreperson sign and date the verdict sheet and notify the marshal that you have reached a verdict. Right. The prosecutors propose a verdict from list 9 predicate acts for the racketeering conspiracy charge. Jurors must find at least two proven for Combs to be convicted on that count, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. One is sex trafficking. And if jurors find it's been proven, they must say whatever involved. They must say whether it involved Ventura between in or about 2009 and in or about 2018, and or Jane between in or about May 2021 and in or about 2024. The S trafficking charges are separate and have a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in prison and a maximum of life. The transportation charges carry a maximum of 10 years. Slavik told jurors on Thursday that the S trafficking crime is about the defendant's use of illegal action to get Cassie and Jane to say yes. It doesn't require them to say no. It doesn't require them to try to run away. It just requires that the defendant knew or recklessly disregarded that they were saying yes to a commercial SCX act because of the force, fraud, or coercion that he used against them, Slavik said. And to prove a racketeering pattern, Slavik said, prosecutors must prove that the defendant agreed with other members of the enterprises that two crimes would be committed. The two acts can be the same kind of act or different acts, such as two acts of drug distribution or two kidnappings, or one act of drug distribution or one kidnapping. Slavik said jurors heard evidence of two occasions where Combs told Jane to transport rugs with the help of his security and chief of staff, Christina Coram, KK Coram. Those are two crimes, two racketeering activities. This is all you need to find the defendant guilty of count one, Slavik said. All right, so we're going to get into more of this a little bit more today, but I just wanted to you know, introduce the case to you all and let you guys know that they're in deliberations. There was like some, conflict with the jurors, and the judge, made it very clear that these are the rules and I need you guys to follow them. Um, And so, yeah. So we will be back live bright and early in the AM. And we're going to be covering this. We're actually going to be covering this because a lot of people thinking that they're going to get the verdict like soon, but I don't think that it's going to be soon. Because if they have to go back, look at videos and reference this and reference that, it's definitely going to take a while. And some people are saying, okay, we want it before the 4th of July. Well, mm, I'm not really sure if it's going to be that soon, but who knows? Thank you all for coming by and listening. Until next time, I'll see you on the next broadcast.